meeting today. Hi, everybody. Wait to have everyone jump in. Really interesting guest. Hi, Prime Time. Hi, guys. If any of you struggle with ADHD, we're going to chat about that today. I have an ADHD advocate, and thank you guys for tuning in. So if you struggle with ADHD or you want to learn a little bit more about what it is, good morning. Stick with us because I think a lot of people have it. And I don't know if you've been diagnosed or what that experience is like for you, but there is ADHD right here. Yeah, exactly. So feel free to ask some questions if you feel you might want to understand ADHD a little better. Trina Haynes, hi, how are you? Thank you for jumping on.
Hello. Hello, Erin. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. I know you probably have a million things scheduled today. No? Okay.
If I do, I already forgot what they are, so it's fine. I have ADHD, remember?
Yeah, I feel so in the company of someone who gets me because laundry has been in the dryer for like 3 days now, and I just...
Yeah, see, we're already besties.
We're already besties. So you're an ADHD advocate, and we found you during a conversation I was having with a girlfriend of mine who is an esthetician, a very successful esthetician. She follows you, and we both sort of became very vulnerable in discussing our trials with ADHD. And I think having you on and being very vocal, it's really, you have an amazing Instagram page. You're really vocal about what ADHD looks like for you. And I kind of want to go through all of that. Like, so you were officially diagnosed with ADHD.
Yes, about 2 years ago, so not that long. I was diagnosed as an adult, and I quickly jumped online to try to find other women with ADHD. And I just didn't, there weren't that many people talking about it at the time. And so I felt compelled to find other women who had ADHD, and here I am.
Yeah. And it feels like a dirty little secret. You know, it's really, I was so proud of my girlfriend, Nicole, for jumping on because, you know, I love doing these interviews as an opportunity to promote a woman's business or talk about what she's gone through. But she's like, no, I want to, it was like this box opened of awareness and going, oh my God, it's been this all along, which we shame ourselves. We live in this society, this high functioning society. And if you're not getting things done or checking out the list, we're losers. And it really allowed for her to just kind of accept and sort of sit in the fact that it's okay.
She's not a loser. She's not a loser. Yeah, that's super common. A lot of women, when they get diagnosed, they find huge relief and validation in their diagnosis. And it's super common for women to feel like a weight lifted off of them after diagnosis. So that's part of the reason why I started talking about it, because I wanted more women to find their diagnosis and feel that shame and guilt like lift off of their shoulders. And I find that that is one of the biggest things is right after you get diagnosed, you just feel like a sense of freedom, and you can release a little bit of the shame and guilt around it.
Can you describe what ADHD is? And is it different than ADD?
So ADD is kind of an older term for ADHD. They are the same thing. So yeah, people sometimes think that they're two different things, but back in the 80s and maybe early 90s, it was called ADD, and they've kind of changed the definition. So it is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is still not aptly named. It's really not the name that resonates with a lot of people. It kind of needs to be renamed again, but that is kind of what we've settled on. And there are a couple of different types of ADHD. So you can be diagnosed with the impulsive ADHD, inattentive, or like a combined version of both of those, which is what I have. I have the fancy combined version. And yeah, it's just, there's a lot of symptoms that line up with ADHD, but not everybody really has the same symptoms, which makes it kind of difficult to diagnose sometimes. The symptoms just show up differently from person to person. So I can kind of run them down if you want. I don't know if that will help anyone.
For sure.
So in women specifically, a lot of it shows up as like overwhelm, low self-esteem, just feeling inadequate, chaos, just like feeling like you're living in chaos, chronic stress, or just some of the impulsivity, like even with talking, some of us tend to interrupt, or we have problems impulsively eating or impulsively spending money. So that's kind of how it shows up in women a lot of times, and it can sometimes be related to anxiety. So it can be misdiagnosed as anxiety too. That happens a lot with women. So yeah, for me, it feels like chronic mom brain is what I feel like it feels like.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I want to get to how one gets ADHD, because I feel like it starts in the family system. Is that right?
So that is a good point. So yes, typically, like in my family, my mom has ADHD, my sister has ADHD. It can be a genetic thing. It can be part genetic, part just how you were raised. There's a lot of like science and studies around it. But yeah, tends to run in the family. So if you have it, it might be wise to like take a look at your parents and see, like, that's a lot of times that's how people get diagnosed, is they take their kid to get a diagnosis, and then they start looking at the symptoms and like, wait a minute, that lines up a lot.
Yeah. And that's what happened with Nicole. She actually was taking her son in to get an evaluation. And it was very interesting. The doctor looked at her and was like, let's talk about your symptoms. And she was like blown away. And I read somewhere that it can also stem from like being witness or exposed to stressed out parents. Is that true?
Yeah, there is some studies about trauma and the relationship with ADHD and trauma. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that you could end up with ADHD, but there is a tie to ADHD and trauma.
Yeah. So then I think part of why I was so excited to have you on is, first of all, I'm so impressed and in admiration of your vulnerability in being able to talk about this, because for women especially, it's like we don't want to let people know we're silently suffering or we're dealing with this, or even just think that it was a thing, and then you start to speak up about your story, and then everybody pops up and goes, oh my God, wait, I have that too. And so it really creates a community of awareness and acceptance, and I think that's really cool that you do that. The other reason why I was excited to have you on is because, hi, whelp, I need help. How do you recommend or advise people who do have it? Like, where do you start when it comes to managing it?
Yeah. So that is a tricky question, but I will answer it the best of my ability. So the best place to start is probably Google, and I hate saying that, but just to try to find a clinician in your area that specializes in ADHD. There are clinicians out there who still struggle to take this seriously, or they don't think that women have ADHD in some places. And so it is quite difficult right now to find care and find someone who understands and doesn't dismiss your ADHD symptoms. So I would jump online and try to find someone who specializes in ADHD. So this would be a psychiatrist who diagnoses ADHD, typically not your family doctor. They would usually refer you out to get diagnosed. And so you'll want to find somebody like that. And then they do a couple of different types of testing. A lot of times they look at your history. They want to know, did these symptoms exist when you were a kid? Sometimes they'll want to speak with someone close to you to get like a kind of a second opinion. of how you behave. And then there's some other more scientific tests where they put a camera on you and they watch how much you wiggle around when you're trying to take a very boring test. And they kind of study you that way, which is quite interesting. And so there's a couple different ways to get diagnosed. And I have ADHD. I already forgot the initial question.
That's amazing. How do you manage it?
Oh,
like,
okay.
What if people don't want to be on medication? I mean, we know people can take medication and that can be helpful. I've also heard the adverse reaction to medication. And as somebody who has taken and tried medication, I don't like that if I'm not on it, I feel sluggish or slow or unmotivated. So then I just, and by the way, I'm not recommending one way or the other. I think you have to do what works for you, but that's what I've experienced, the adverse side of the medication. So I try to go a little bit more natural. What works for you with managing? I love that you forgot the question. You're amazing.
Yeah. So that happens all the time. I actually host a podcast, so it's quite interesting to hear where that conversation goes to. But yeah, so I'm actually not medicated currently. I have tried a couple of different ones, and I'm kind of in your boat where I just want to be a little bit more in control of what's happening. I totally get why people try medication. I hear a lot of great things about it. Hasn't worked for me. I wish it would. I wish it would work for me because I've heard really good things about it. But besides medication, there's a couple things you can do. There are ADHD coaches out there. So people who have ADHD that make it their mission in life to help others with ADHD. There are some phenomenal coaches out there. And then therapy. Obviously, I would recommend therapy to everyone on the planet. But coaches specifically usually bring something else to the table where they can give you more direct tools and stuff that you can do. But one of the biggest things is just knowing you have ADHD. And just when you start to criticize yourself, you can look at it in a different light. And like, it's the releasing of the shame and the guilt around having ADHD is probably the biggest thing. But there are tons of tools out there to help with ADHD. But the biggest thing is to be okay that not all of those tools are going to help you every single time, and to be able to have a lot of tools in your toolbox that you can pull from, and to be okay with the idea that it may work one day and not the next. Mm-hmm. So there's like Pomodoro method timers. You can get fidget toys. Like there's tons of different ways, but a lot of it has to do with making tasks fun and exciting. And changing, making a boring task and kind of turning it into a fun task is probably the biggest one. So just being okay with not using the same tool every day. That's probably the biggest one.
The Pomodoro method, for those of you who may not know, is essentially where you time yourself and then you get a task done within the time. And it's amazing how it works so well for me. So what I do is I just use the timer on our phone. Hey Siri, set timer for 25 minutes, because I read somewhere our brain can only focus for 25 minutes at a time. Then we need a break, which by the way, love school. Not really, but we're sitting in our chairs for 8 hours and we're squirmish and wondering why we can't focus. And sometimes we shame the child and not the system. And I'm not saying we need to shame the system, but I'm saying maybe there needs to be a more effective way to evaluate uniqueness in different kids who are probably not that unique. But I just know me sitting still for 8 hours or longer than 25 minutes will make me very squirrely.
Preach.
Yes.
So one of the biggest things there is I took an ADHD test where they do kind of track your attention span. And my attention span is literally 5 minutes. So not even the whole 20-25 minute thing. Like after 5 minutes, if it's pretty boring, like I'm tuning out, I'm tired, I'm not paying attention. And that's pretty common for people with ADHD. Is like 20 minutes is a long time for people with ADHD to hold attention for the most part. And I was going to show you the timer. One of the timers that I use is called Time Timer. And let me show you. It's a visual timer. So a lot of us with ADHD are time blind. So we have time blindness on top of what we're dealing with. And so this really helps you visually see how much time is left on a task. So this is one of my favorite ADHD like hacks. A lot of people with ADHD use this timer, and it's called Time Timer.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So what about meditation? Does that help you? Does that?
Yeah. Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sorry, I keep getting calls, and so it's doing this thing. I apologize. It's like,
don't they know we are on an Instagram live?
seriously. Yeah, yeah.
No. So look, I forgot the question again. Oh my gosh, meditation. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get a lot out of yoga. So which is very similar. A lot of people, arts and crafts, like if you're doing something where you're focused and you're meditating through art or whatever, but yes, it definitely helps people with ADHD. Meditating, yoga, anything where you can kind of clear your mind for just any time. Because a lot of people with ADHD have like racing thoughts. Our brains do not shut up. There's a lot of activity going on up there constantly. So anything that you can do that you know of that helps to calm that down and quiet the thoughts up there is super helpful for people with ADHD, probably for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Just like therapy,
Yeah.
we recommend meditation and just
Yeah.
calming your thoughts.
Yes.
Getting still. And it's so funny. That is terrifying for me. Being still, in many respects, like being alone, I do need to be alone, like to re-energize or whatever. But I'm like such a busy bee that like I almost do better when I know I have a really stacked schedule, and then I plan the stillness in between the stacked schedule.
Yeah.
Like if I just had a day that had no schedule, I'm like freaking out. So
yeah, that's pretty common. I mean, most people with ADHD are pretty much running around all day, but really not accomplishing much. We just like go, 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 go. We have a lot of energy. A lot of people with ADHD are kind of youthful, and they're known for like appearing younger than they are. We have like a youthful glow to us, which I find that side effect quite nice. But yeah, sometimes the slowing down is very hard, and a lot of people with ADHD have to time that and put it in their schedule to take time to be quiet or go for a walk. You have to actually schedule that time, or else we just fill it with nonsense.
Yep, we do. And then someone had asked, and I thought it was a good question, is it more prevalent in women, more prevalent in men? Is there a gender difference there?
That's such a good question. So it was diagnosed when we were younger. It was diagnosed mostly in boys. It was not diagnosed in women or girls. And it's just now starting to become a thing where women are getting diagnosed with ADHD. I think the studies on the numbers are not accurate right now. I think we really don't have a handle on how many people actually have ADHD. I tend to think it's more women, but I'm also surrounded by women on my platform. So it's hard to say, but I think the studies are not accurate. I think there's more people with ADHD than are reporting.
When you decided to use your platform to talk about this, I would assume, that's a little courageous to be able to kind of go like, I have this thing that society deems as a thing. So what made you feel compelled to be able to kind of speak about this and really like find the courage in sort of helping a lot of people?
Well, it wasn't easy in the beginning. I got a lot of kickback, even from people in my family. Like, are you sure you want to talk about that? Like, what if your job sees these posts? Like, I had a corporate job at the time, and I was talking about it even before they knew about it. And it was a little scary to talk about. I just felt very strongly that I should find more women that have ADHD. I was like led by something that I don't know where it came from, but I felt very compelled to talk about it. And the more I talked about it, the more women came out of the woodworks just to say, thank you for talking about this. Thank you for bringing awareness to this. I went and got tested because of your videos. Like, now my life makes sense to me. And the more you hear that, the more you have to keep doing it. it kind of became a train that I couldn't get off of. And I ended up telling my corporate job, you know, like, hey, you may see me online, I'm talking about ADHD. Like, if you don't want me working here because I have that, like, I don't want to work here. Like, if you're not cool with me having ADHD and talking about it, like, we have bigger problems here. So I just became very, very open about it, and it's super freeing. And it's been very difficult at points, but it's been very freeing at the same time, because I'm officially like myself for the first time in 35 years. And I've now like encouraged thousands maybe of women to go get tested for ADHD, and now they are talking about it, and there's more people talking about it and more people getting diagnosed. And I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Even if only 100 people had followed me and we talked about it, that would have been a win for me. So the fact that so many people resonate with my content just keeps me posting every day, keeps me going.
Yeah.
And it's validating for me. I've always told people, like, I get a lot more out of sharing my experience than they do, because it validates what I'm going through. If I post like, hey, I lost my debit card. So I actually did lose my debit card yesterday. I've been looking for it all day. And I've got hundreds of people saying, me too. Like, I do that. And that makes me feel better. Like, it's a selfish thing. I'm pretty much post just to validate my own experience. And it's been so healing for me to have other women come out of the woodwork and validate what I've been going through.
Yeah. Well, I just want to reflect to you that what I see in you is the ability to give women and men permission to lessen this pressure that we feel we need to be what other people think they want us to be. And you're living that, and it really is giving women permission to lose the credit card or leave the clothes in the dryer or just forget the question on the interview, because it happens all the time to all of us. We're overstimulated. We're on social media, and we're seeing these images of like what people are doing and how they're crushing life. And that's amazing. But I also want to have an invitation to be like perfectly flawed. And you give us that permission, and your story is so inspiring, and you're so dang courageous. And your page is hilarious.
Oh,
it is
so
hilarious.
Nice.
Yes.
That's so nice, Erin. Thank you.
Thank you for jumping on. I know people who might be tuning in are already probably big fans of yours, but how can we learn more about you, and where do we go to find your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So my platform is My Lady ADHD. You can find me at myladyadhd.com. It's very hard to say quickly. I do have a podcast that just launched a few weeks ago called the My Lady ADHD podcast. And you can find that on my website. You can go on my Instagram and jump on there and just follow me and watch me try to find my debit card this week. That's pretty much what we talk about, is the real world shenanigans of what it's like to have ADHD. And we're not sugarcoating this crap anymore. Like, it's real, and we're all struggling with it, and people need to be honest about it. And that's what I try to do.
Yes, you are a dang gift, and happy holidays. Keep sane if that's possible. I haven't done any Christmas shopping, so here we are.
Yeah, it's fine. We're good. We'll be all right.
We'll be all right. All right. Well, I hope I get to meet you in person. You are a rock star and a gift to all of us. And Merry Christmas, happy holidays, all of the things. Good luck finding your debit card.
Thanks. I probably don't need it, because I'll just go buy a bunch of stuff I don't need. So it's probably best that it stay lost for a while.
I buy things and then I'm too distracted to return them. So it's probably a good thing too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Return things. No. Well, thank you, Erin. I appreciate it. Happy holidays. Talk soon.
Bye, lady. Take care.
Bye.